I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. I would like to welcome all of you in attendance tonight, as well as those that might be watching Cable TV 7, to tonight's meeting. The next item on the agenda is the consent. I've been asked to pull item E. Are there other items that needs to be pulled? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for the approval. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Lauer?
Aye.
Councilman Reed?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Shaver?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Solon?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Item E, is there a motion, and then we get into discussion? Anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Councilman Solon?
I'm going to
Councilman
defer to
Fowler.
Councilman Fowler. He's got his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, Your Honor, I did request this be pulled. I wanted to talk about MARSIT, and now I think they're MRP, so if I get that acronym
Right.
wrong, it's not intentionally. I want to talk about the size and the size of market, the insurance pool that we're in, and some of the issues that have come to light in the past year for me. And just, you know, why I have concerns about this insurance that we have for our liability. There is a MRP from their website. They cover more than 4,400 employees, okay? 4,400 employees. If you add their families in there, it gets over a little 10,000. That's from their site. 4,400 employees, you think about that relationship, maybe like the school district of Blue Springs, 1,200 employees, so that'd be like 25% of their base. We're 250 of those employees here in Blue Springs. 1 out of 18 people that MARSIT covers is a Blue Springs employee or their family. So what I'm saying is it's not that big of a trust. From what I saw of the other cities that they have on their website, the top 4 are supposed to be on the board of directors. Blue Springs is by far the biggest community within the MARSIT. Matter of fact, at 4,400 employees that they cover, and they say they've got over 100 entities, that average is about 44, you know, somewhere less than 44 per site. And so they're not that big. I guess one of the things that concerns me, MARSIT, their fall conference that they had back in 2008, they claim that over 350 members and partners attended at the fall conference in Branson at a 4-diamond luxury hotel, the Chateau on the Lake Resort and Spa. They could certainly met in the metropolitan area. That's where most of their business is at, in the metropolitan area, but they chose, like they do, it's already on the schedule for next year. 350 out of 4,400, that's almost 1 in 10. Can you imagine if your insurance company had 1 of 10 members go to a 4-diamond hotel on them? I mean, you got to wonder what's that about. It's free trips every year for our staff and our council. I don't like the other things that they do relative to charge higher premiums and turn that around for so-called free money that comes back so we can do projects that they endorse. My concern is that we need to look beyond this long-standing relationship we've had with Market and see if there's some other opportunities for insurance. You want to look at, you know, other communities around that are our size or larger: Overland Park, Kansas City, Kansas; Olathe, Lawrence, Shawnee, Lenexa, Leawood, Prairie Village, Independence, Kansas City, St. Joseph. You know, I see an awful lot of cities that don't have this insurance coverage, and there's probably reasons why. So I'm kind of thinking maybe it's time that we get some insurance professionals and look at the coverage that we're getting, because as we talked in the past year about this, when it's time to use the insurance, we find out, well, it's really not insurance. It's even our insurance agent tells you it's not insurance. So, but yet we're paying for liability insurance. So I think we need to get what we pay for.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, Your Honor, I had a few. I would probably echo some concerns that I had about our liability insurance. Recently, we had a lawsuit, and that's when I got concerned, because when our insurance carrier gets in front of us and says 3 things that worried me. Number 1, the city doesn't have insurance, is what they told us. Number 2, They told us that Marset can change our policy on a dime. That worries me. And the third thing was that the city has no insurance for land use issues. And actually, in the policy, what they exclude and are not limited to are zoning regulations, rezoning of land, subdivision regulations, variances, or permit issuances, among other things. About 90% of what the planning commission's decisions are deal with land use issues. The city council, probably about 75% of what we do concerns land use issues. We need to get a trusted group of unbiased insurance professionals to advise us and help us get as far as dollar-to-dollar insurance versus self-insurance, to advise us on the risk and liabilities with doing business with Marset and being self-insured. Right now, with our current insurance, I'm not comfortable because if we are not covered on land use issues, then our planning commission, our other boards and commissions are at risk because that's what they deal with constantly, and they're volunteers, so we're risking them possibly being sued personally or as a group by a developer who does not get what they want regarding a land use. So I have some real concerns. I would like to see us have a group of trusted individuals look into this and advise us on what the best course of action is.
Any other comments? Councilman Reed?
Well, having been on the council nearly as long as Ron, and we have had really good care through this company. I don't think they've ever failed us in any way. And I think some of the things you're talking about, you'll find out other insurance groups don't insure against either. And I just think, you know, they've proven themselves to us, have taken very good care of us, and I can't see changing.
Any other comments? Councilman Shaver?
Your Honor, a couple of comments. I guess what I'm hearing here is a concern. There's several pieces to this: the property insurance, workman's comp, as well as liability insurance. I think the concern is on the liability insurance side of it. And I share some of the concerns. You know, I think it would make sense to get some competitive bids in that. There has, I guess, in all due respect to Councilman Reed, there has been a couple concerns in the past that I'm aware of. I'm aware of at least one council person and one planning person who no longer is in those positions because of liability concerns. One of which resigned from the planning commission, the other which just chose not to run again. And the whole issue was they didn't feel they were covered with liability insurance. So I would like to amend the motion to exclude liability insurance and have staff come back with bid alternatives for our next council meeting to look at the liability side, but approve the property insurance and the workman comps portion of it.
Before I ask for a second on that, I want to caution you that if we do not renew, we set people up without liability.
Well,
And I don't want to run that risk of danger.
I understand. I guess you're saying, why are we voting on it then if there's no choice, respectfully? But let me answer.
It can be perceived that way.
Let me answer this a little differently. My experience with insurance companies, you typically have a 30-day grace period. So I'm assuming that we have got 30 days from whenever it was due, which was what?
Mr. Johnson?
If we're going to pursue, first of all, the annual premiums are due each year in July 1, because we did not have a city council meeting on the first week of July due to the 4th of July holiday. This is the first available time that we could take up and consider these premiums, which we bring to you every year at this time. Our bylaws and our contractual obligations with Market, now MPR, requires that we give them 90 days written notice if we are going to pursue a different course of action. If we breach that, we are subject to a penalty clause that's in the bylaws. We would, Mr. McDonald, do you want to add anything to that? I think we're bound by a 90-day written notification.
May I go?
Yes, please.
The way the bylaws are written that we approved back in 2006, joined, is you have to give 90 days notice prior to when your term expires, your contract year expires, which for us was June 30th of 2009, or you pay a 25% of last year's premium for, as a penalty, agreed upon penalty that's in the bylaws also. But the more critical thing is, Councilman Shaver's not correct in the sense that we have any leeway. If we don't buy this insurance, we are not covered for any events that occur after June 30th until we get insurance somewhere else. So while I'm not trying to say whether we should look into other things or not, we got to be extremely careful about how we do that unless we have some policy in effect that provides coverage for the city during the interim while we're looking.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I actually have our Marset contract in front of me, and Councilman Shaver is correct. Section 1.04, the period of membership is as stated in the coverage summary. A member entity that terminates membership in Marset shall have extended reporting periods for, and it says that these extended reporting shall be 30 days from the date of termination of membership and shall not require additional contributions. Also, Marset and the member entity may agree to a further extension of the reporting period. This expired on July 1st. If it's June 30th, so it's actually been for 20 days, I guess, expired. I would assume we have 30 days
Mr.
to.
McDonald?
Let me explain what reporting period means. If you read it carefully, you'll find that it's for events that began or occurred during your membership period. You have 30 days following the cancellation or in which you have to report something that occurred while you had coverage. It's not an extension of coverage for 30 days.
Could I make another statement, please?
Councilman Reed?
To solve this, what I would like to see us just go ahead and approve it for this year and appoint a commissioner, whatever, however you want to do it, to look in it for next year. This does not seem like the proper time to do it.
Your Honor, I guess my concern would be I would hate to have another year of our commission members, in my opinion, being at risk. And Councilman Shaver's right. We have had commissioners that have quit in the past because they did not have coverage and they were involved in a lawsuit.
I'm not sure that's exactly correct. I mean, I can't question why people quit, but I would question whether that we're not covered when it comes to specific, and I'll get it out here in a minute, issues. Matter of fact, if you reflect back when the lawsuit was filed against us, it was Marset that stepped up to the plate, waived our deductible, and also provided legal representation during that process without any cost to the city.
And that's true, but we're technically not covered for land use. I can see where Councilman Shaver's coming from and from where Mr. Johnson coming from. I guess I would contend that we could go ahead and approve this so that we have coverage, but I think that if we could amend the motion that basically staff is being directed to get unbiased, independent insurance professionals to come back with a bid, we can cancel our insurance with 90-day notice. So it's not that we have to go a full year, but we definitely should be able to look into other options. I know other cities yearly review their insurance coverage and many times change it periodically. We've had the same carrier since 1984.
Do you have any other comments, Councilman Shaver?
I guess I'm a little concerned that, if I'm hearing this correct, we have been uninsured for the past 20 days. Is that correct?
As long as we have not canceled it, it should still be in effect. Should it not?
I personally contacted the president and CEO of Midwest Public Risk, Mr. Norwood, who is here. You've met him on many occasions. I explained to him our situation with our council meetings, and he assured me that we would continue to have insurance.
Thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Yeah, these clauses, there's a lot of very unique clauses in this that I just don't believe many people would ever sign up for in their own business or in their own profession. There's just some things that they control, and that's it. To me, this is it's the first time in 25 years we're talking about this, about putting, maybe going with a different insurance carrier. I think that we should competitively bid it. I think that's a great element of this. To me, Marset, and I've told our city administrator this, it's a group that was designed by city administrators for city administrators. And it's now time that we look beyond that, because we've certainly grown. And I think that we need to see this. Honestly, if you buy real insurance, it may actually cost more, but then again, you're managing risk better that way too. That's why I say we need to get insurance professionals in here to really weigh this out. How come Marset doesn't have market share? Okay, it's a pretty small entity when 1 out of every 18 people covered is Blue Springs. So.
Well, certainly, Council, you have a decision to make. Personally, I think to make that decision tonight is probably not in the best interest of this city. Certainly, this is something, if you want to have work sessions on in the future, we can do that. And if a majority of the council decides that you want to change, you want to study, or whatever, you can, but staff has not been instructed by the majority of this council to go out and do that. Until such time as a majority of the council decides that that's what needs to be done, then it's not something that I would instruct them to do.
Well, Your Honor, I heard Councilman Reed correctly, and maybe I'm misspeaking here, she can tell me that. If she made a motion that along with this approval, we do set up a commission to review this, and I think you did.
I never asked for a second, so that's really not in the
Well,
fact.
I'll make that motion then, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion that, with this approval, that we set up a commission to review this and go forward from there.
I second that.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Councilman Reed.
If it has to do with, when I said, look into it for the future, I think this would be a long time. It's not something somebody can look into and read all the fine print in just a little bit. I would like to see it take place on the year anniversary that it would normally be due. By then, everything would be in place and we would know what we wanted to do. I don't want to do anything in a haphazard way when we have had such excellent care and excellent insurance. And one thing I'm going to speak that, Ron said, which it was
Councilman Fowler.
set up for, yes, Councilman, that it was set up by administrators, for administrators. I really don't think that's right. I think it was set up for the city.
That's my perception. There was no time limit saying that it has to be done in 90 days on the motion, or whether it be done next year. I'm saying set up a commission to review the risks and liabilities of continuing this course of action.
Any other comments before we take a vote?
Yes, Your Honor, please.
Councilman Lauer.
Thank you. I would agree that we should proceed this evening as given, and then as we look at future, with whatever group is put together to do that we might also look at the extended liability issues or coverages, and really look at the options and how things can be mixed and matched and so forth from all of the agencies that would be recommended, whether it's through NPR, I'm sorry, or any other ones. If we're going to review, then let's review it and take a fresh perspective and look at everything and see what the options are out there. What do we really want in this whole mix of things, rather than looking at what we have, comparing that to what's out there. If we're going to look at it, let's look at it in a bigger, broader picture.
Any other comments? Mr. Johnson?
Just a couple of things, and appreciate the comments and direction from the city council. As you know, your staff will go in whatever direction you send us. It will take time for us to develop a process, and I've asked our HR director, Sue Hyman, to be here tonight in anticipation that there might be some questions or some direction like this. She's begun to do a little bit of due diligence and research. We would recommend in any process that we go through that we bring on and retain somebody who could assist us with that process as an insurance expert, our eyes and ears, a third-party person. So we would be coming back to you at some point in time as part of a commission that might be set up to, we would ask you to spend some money on consulting services to help us do some due diligence. Also, just for the record, and obviously 20-plus years with one organization, this pool has been through the good and the bad times. In 1984, there were 9 original charter members, and all 9 of those charter members still remain with NPR today. Lease Summit, I believe, is the only organization You do have the opportunity to, for lack of a better term, cherry pick the coverages you get. We have all of our coverages with NPR. A few years ago, the city of Lee Summit evaluated whether or not they would self-insure their work comp. They also went out and decided to evaluate other insurance providers. So some of the original charter members have done that. All of those organizations look at their own needs, their unique situations, and make their own business decision and case for those decisions. But I just wanted to be on record, indicate this isn't something we could do in 90 days. It's going to take some time and effort to go through this process.
Councilman Howard?
One other comment, in regards to market, that is currently designed as a pool, a self-funding pool. So there's also some philosophical discussion regarding, do we want to continue with a self-funded pool? And/or is it recommended that we look at a for-profit insurance organization? So those are some additional thoughts that need to be kept in mind as this is pursued.
Councilman Howard?
I think
Shaver?
it seems to
We look
me
alike, I know.
that's a decision you make on economic basis.
And
I
so-
don't know there's any argument for one versus the other. It's a matter which gives you the most for your dollar.
And which one sends you to the chateau at the lake, you know?
I'm not sure that private ones don't do that too, but that's a discussion for another time.
1 out of 10 members, I don't know.
Your Honor, by the way, I just want for the record to say that I haven't been to the Chateau at the Lake. You mentioned council, I wasn't there.
I wasn't there.
Neither was I, so you can read about it on their website.
Any further discussion? Well, you know, we talked about longevity, and Councilman Reed has been here a little less than Councilman Fowler. Well, I predate all of you. I predate to 1984 when we became a charter member of Marcy. I was on the Blue Springs Board of Matter of fact, I think I was probably Mayor Pro Tem back then. And they've served us well, and I don't want this to appear that we're beating up on them like they haven't served us. They have served us. Now, if the council want to take a different direction, and certainly that's at the will of the majority of the council, if you want to take a different approach, look at some other options, that's certainly within purview of your authority. I want to make sure you make that clear before we take the vote. Okay? Any further discussion? Roll call.
Your Honor,
Yes.
the first thing we're voting on is Councilman Fowler's motion, correct?
You're voting on Councilman Fowler's motion that at some point we will appoint a task force, and I'm not sure which method we'll use at this point.
Could I request that Mrs. Morgan read back the motion to us, that Councilman Fowler, we've had so much discussion that it'd probably be helpful.
Would you do that, please?
I sure will. I have, there was motion to set up a meeting and commence to review and go forward. Is how I have it written in my shorthand.
I don't think that's going to be the motion.
No, that's why I was hoping that we could clarify that before a vote was
Could
taken.
Councilman Fowler please repeat his motion that I seconded?
Do you remember exactly how you said it?
The intent was, honestly, it was the same intent that I read into Councilman Reed's, and that is that we get a group of insurance professionals together and have them review our situation and help advise this council, and that would, of course, you know, take some staff assistance as well, but the main focus is getting, you know, some concerned people that know the business of insurance and communities, and review our situation and advise. If a course of action is to be taken after that, then that's the next step. You know, I don't know that what that committee will tell us, but
Let me ask this, staff, do you understand exactly what your charge is?
Yes, Your Honor, we do understand that charge, and I believe that's the intent of this motion tonight, that you would approve the items before you, contingent upon some process being put in place that you and I would sit down and we would figure out the best mode for going forward with this and coming back at some point in time and giving the city council additional insurance options.
yeah. And one further comment, I've not gotten any I wanted to make that one motion that said on approval that this would be a part of that program. In other words, I realize we've got the issue tonight, and you just can't say, hey, we're going to stop, we're going to do this tonight, but I don't mind approving it with that condition, so.
Your Honor, may I have just one point of clarification?
Sure.
The initial conversation focused on general liability. Is that still the direction? Are we only looking at general liability options, or are we looking at everything comprehensively? Those are two different exercises.
My intention was all of our insurance collectively to make the best decisions, and if that means break it out into an à la carte, then we do go that way. You know, you said Lee Summit has done that. I don't know why they chose to go that direction, but, you know, so I think you look at the entire issue.
So you're looking at all coverage,
Yes.
okay?
And then my other question is that we don't implement anything until a year from now when this comes up again.
There
That
is no
is
time
not
frame.
part-
There's
that is
no
not-
time frame on it.
Yeah, there's no time frame.
So whatever information comes to the council after that, and we make decisions, if we decide to do anything, I'm sure we'll weigh that in at the time about when.
Yeah, a majority of council will ultimately make the decision whether, if they can't come back with some recommendations, whether we do it at the expiration of this current contract that we're entering in tonight, or if the majority of the council decides you want to go ahead and counsel the existing one with a 90-day notice or be subject to some penalties. So I think good sound judgment would help determine which route you go.
If I could ask our city attorney, Mr. McDonald, when we were discussing the penalties and so forth earlier, with that 90-day notice and so forth, are there still penalties associated with that, just as a baseline?
Well, let me make sure that everybody understands it, because the way it's being discussed right now, I'm not sure everybody does. The 90-day notice has to be given 90 days prior to the expiration date for cancellation on the expiration date. The penalty provision is 25% of the previous year's premium, an additional 25% of the previous year's premium, if you do not give the 90 days and you terminate someplace in the middle.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Good.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Not, let's take a vote on the amendment to the actual.
Councilman Lauer?
Aye.
Councilman Reed?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Shaver?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Solon?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Okay, now we will vote on the adoption of Resolution 662009 as amended.
So move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I doubt, sir, so we have any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilman Lauer?
Aye.
Councilman Reed?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Shaver?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Solon?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Very good. So we will proceed as determined with the vote. Next, we have a public hearing on the Unified Development Code Text Amendment, Telecommunication Facility Use Regulations.
Your Honor, for a public hearing, UDCT-6-09-2197, I'd like to introduce one exhibit which includes City Council information form from Community Development Director Scott Allen with attachments, including staff report to Planning Commission dated July 13, 2009, and affidavit of publication as advertised in Blue Springs Examiner, June 27, 2009. These are all the exhibits I have to offer on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Your Honor, and members of the council. Again, before you this evening is a request to amend portion of Chapter 403, Section 170 of the UDC. This is the Telecommunications Facility Use Regulations, or more affectionately known as the cell tower regulations. As you recall, the last City Council meeting, which was back on June 15th, Councilman Shaver, who is the council liaison or head of the task force, telecommunications task force, gave a presentation at length, giving a summary of what the task force had accomplished since their inception by the mayor in January of this year, where they reviewed the current telecommunications ordinance and determined if changes were needed. As discussed in that presentation, the task force did determine that the telecommunications ordinance was up to date and did compare favorably with other communities. They offered recommendations for only minor changes. That was brought before the Planning Commission last week, July 13th, for their public hearing, and a similar presentation was given at that time. I did want to highlight just there were a few questions and comments that were shared at that meeting. Councilman Shaver was present and can respond to those, as well as Councilman Solon as the Planning Commission liaison. So perhaps they have some additional information to share as well, but did just want to highlight, it was in the council information form as well, that they discussed The antenna type hierarchy, as we have it defined in the telecommunications ordinance, discussing stealth, design, looking at how that compares with monopole construction and such. They also discussed the issue of the lattice type tower for emergency services communication systems, and whether that was a contradiction with what was being proposed and requiring monopole only for all other providers. And also there was a discussion on the number of photo simulation drawings that would be required. Again, that's a new requirement being proposed with the ordinance before you this evening. After all those discussions, the Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval of the ordinance amendments as proposed. So what you're seeing before you this evening is what the Planning Commission also saw last week, and they've recommended no additional changes following that discussion and have presented it for your consideration this evening.
Any questions on Mr. Allen? Any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in support of? Support of. Opposition to? Opposition to? We close this public hearing. Now we'll have an introduction and reading of Bill 4067. Is there an introducer?
I'll introduce it, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill Number 4067, an ordinance amending Section 403-170, Telecommunications Facility Regulations of the Code Ordinances of the City of Blue Springs to make minor changes and updates.
Move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Go ahead. Oh, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Second reading of Bill Number 4067, an ordinance amending Section 403-170, Telecommunications Facility Use Regulations of the Code Ordinances of the City of Blue Springs to make minor changes and updates.
Your Honor, I move the bill be approved on its second and final reading and be assigned the appropriate ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Reed?
Aye.
Councilman Fowler?
Aye.
Councilman Shaver?
Aye.
Councilman Edmondson?
Aye.
Councilman Solon?
Aye.
Councilman Lauer?
Aye.
Carried unanimously, given ordinance number 4250.
Next, we have a public hearing on the 2009-2010 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan.
Your Honor, for this public hearing, we'll have one exhibit to offer, which includes a City Council information form from Scott Allen, Director of Community Development, 2009-2010 one-year action strategy table, and affidavit of publication as advertised in Blue Springs Examiner, June 27, 2009. These are all the exhibits I have to offer on this public hearing.
Okay. Mr. Allen?
Thank you again, Your Honor, and members of the council. Again, this is simply a public hearing that's required through the process of developing the annual action plan. Again, this being the 2009-2010 version. Staff was before you at several occasions here recently, beginning on May 4th, discussing the CDBG program, and that was just prior to notification of the final proposed award that would be forthcoming on October 1st. So we presented you with a list of potential sidewalk projects in the near and around the downtown area, but wholly within the low to moderate income areas. And since that time, the final number has been presented as $229,193. At that time, council directed to move forward with $125,000 set aside for the minor home repair program. This year, it's been slated at $75,000. We're proceeding through that as we speak, and hopefully we'll have a review of that for you later this summer as some of those projects are being completed. The remainder of the $229,000 slated to go to two separate sidewalk projects, again using up the remainder of approximately $104,000. With that, did pass out prior to the meeting here our first draft of what we call the fourth program year action plan, and that is what's being considered during this public notice period. We're in the middle of the 30-day comment period, which will end on July 27th. This is one of the public hearings that we're holding. The final will be at the next City Council meeting on August 3rd, at which point we look forward to an adoption of a formal and final draft of this plan to move forward to HUD for August 15th. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak in support of the annual action plan for the community development block grants? In support of? In opposition to? Opposition to? Close this public hearing. Next, we have mayoral announcements. I have 3. The first one, tonight I am announcing the appointment of a comprehensive plan review task force, which will be chaired by Councilman Sheila Solon, and we'll have 1 planning commissioner from each council district. District 1 representative will be Mark Trosen, District 2, Lynn Banks, and District 3, Susan Culpepper. We are hopeful that this task force will be able to get their work done within the next 60 days and be able to come back with some recommendations or a plan that for us to approve. Secondly, this Friday night, we have July 24th, the Blue Springs Street Flicks, and that's the second and last one for the year, I believe. Madagascar 2. Activities for children began at 7:15 and the movie will begin at dusk at 12th and Main. The David Cook mural will be draped and you'll be able to watch the movie. This next one we will announce 2 times, tonight and again on August 3rd. And that's the National Night Out on Crime or Against Crime. It will be held from 6 to 9 in downtown Blue Springs in the Farmers Market right here to our left, across from the Blue Springs Police Department, of which we are now located. So anyway, we want to get as much information out as possible on that. I know Councilman Lauer is taking an active role in some of the neighborhoods. Rather than just have it downtown this year, we want to be able to take it out into the neighborhoods and do some things. So can you give us just a little brief summary on what that's going to be like?
Absolutely, thank you. This year, National Night Out is expanding into the neighborhoods and into businesses. And any neighborhood who would like to participate in this, there's still time to get that going. There will be a group of individuals who will be coming around, including the police officers and so forth, to your neighborhood, to your homeowners association, or however you want to set that up, with some information and some giveaways, and also to share what you can do within your homeowners areas in making sure we're preventing crime at the highest level. We have just sent out a press release today, I believe it was there last week, from Meredith Parish, from the city, talking about open garage doors and these opportunity crimes that are out there. And certainly we want to make sure that there's as much education and awareness in the community as much as there is for those who are coming into downtown to celebrate and to participate in that evening.
Thank you. And I tell you, it's very critical on National Night Out Against Crime. Before I came here tonight, I saw a press conference by my colleague in Kansas City, Mayor Funkhauser. If you've been watching Kansas City, there are most crimes are senseless anyway. But something that touched me, because my wife and I have gone to Starlight a couple of times this year. A lady driving from Starlight was hit by a stray bullet and killed. We don't want that in Blue Springs.
It happened to be the night I went.
It's the night Councilman Reed went. I mean, innocent people, become subject to those kinds of things. So what we want to do is we want to be vigilant. We want to inform our neighbors. There's something suspicious going on, report it. You know, there is a saying that be a snitch. If being a snitch was help keep these thugs off the streets, then be a snitch. Turn them in. Let the authorities deal with them. Because you just got senseless, needless killings that go on. We have not experienced that in Blue Springs. And God forbid that we do have to deal with stuff like that in Blue Springs, but what we're going to be proactive in trying to keep it from happening here in Blue Springs. It's something that we all should be concerned about. That concludes my mayoral announcements.
Can I ask a question about one of your announcements?
Yes.
The Planning Commission that you set up?
Right, the task force.
Task force?
Right.
What are they to be studying?
Okay, they're going to study the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interest in having a comprehensive plan review. So this committee is going to actually go in there, because one of the decisions we made as a council is that we didn't want to spend $200,000 or $300,000 doing a comprehensive plan, knowing that the census data is going to be out within the next couple of years. And we'd probably have to do it all over again.
That's fine. I
Yeah.
just, that
So-
portion wasn't included, and I thought, what are we doing?
Okay, that answer your question. Okay, next we have visitors. Anyone in the audience? I don't have any of speaker appearance forms, so I'm going to assume that I don't have anyone in the audience who would like to address the council.
May I suggest maybe you talk about the fact that we made national news this evening?
Why don't you share that with our viewing audience as well as those in the audience here tonight? Turn your mic on and share that with them.
Well, right before I came to the meeting this evening, I was watching the national news with ABC, and Blue Springs took up a nice little segment about their paying it forward at the Steaming Bean, and they interviewed customers, and they interviewed the owner, and it was really a nice piece, and since I had no idea it was going to be on there, I thought, watch this before I go up to the meeting. Anyway, it was really, really good PR, and it shows, you know, how great Blue Springs really is.
Well, you know, now that we're the 10th largest city in the state of Missouri, I would expect a lot of that to be happening. We get national recognition beyond just the state of Missouri. Okay, next I would like to have a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters. Is there a motion?
So move, yeah.
Is there a second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? We're going to take about a 5-minute recess, and then the council will convene into executive session. I don't know. Just give it to somebody.